There is a kind of pain that changes the way you see. Not the pain of accident or illness, not loss by circumstance. Those wounds are hard enough. But the wound of betrayal, of someone choosing to hurt you, carries something different. It doesn't just hurt. It asks a question you can't stop hearing. What does it mean that they did that to me? If you have felt that question, if you have carried it in the quiet moments when you thought you were finally moving on, then you already know something about Joseph. Joseph was 17 years old the day his brothers decided to be rid of him. He had done nothing wrong. He had walked out to the fields to find them, carrying food from his father. And when they saw him coming from a distance, they looked at each other and made a decision. They stripped off his coat. They threw him in a pit. And then they sat down to eat. That detail stays with me every time. They sat down to eat. Whatever Joseph was shouting from the bottom of that pit, whatever he was screaming or pleading or crying, his brothers sat down and opened their food. The sound of him didn't stop them. The sight of him walking toward them in good faith didn't stop them. They had already decided what he was worth. The Bible doesn't record Joseph's words in that moment, but it does tell us, years later when the brothers are standing before him in Egypt, that he remembered. That when they didn't recognize him, he recalled the anguish of that boy in the pit. He had not forgotten. Betrayal is not something you forget. A caravan came from the east. Silver changed hands. And Joseph was taken south, away from his father, away from his home, away from every dream he had ever held about who he was supposed to become. And God said nothing. This is the part the comfortable version of the story moves past too quickly. There was no voice from heaven, no angel at the roadside, no visible sign that any of this was being watched. Just a boy in chains, moving further and further from everything familiar, with no explanation and no promise that any of it would make sense. If you have ever been inside that kind of silence, where the thing that was supposed to protect you failed, where the people who were supposed to love you made a different choice, and you waited for something to say this will be all right, you already know what Joseph was carrying. He was sold again in Egypt, into the household of a captain named Potiphar. He served there with everything he had. He was lied about by the captain's wife. He was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He interpreted a dream for a man who promised to mention his case, and then forgot him for 2 full years. 2 years of waiting in a cell after the one person who could help him walked free. And here is what is remarkable. Not that Joseph survived. Many people survive terrible things without becoming anything. What is remarkable is what did not leave him. The gift his brothers had always resented. The thing that made him strange to them. The quality that marked him as different. The capacity that set him apart. That gift was still there. In Potiphar's house, in the prison, in the darkness where no one important could see it, except the people who needed it in that moment. His brothers tried to destroy the thing they envied. They couldn't reach it. The day came when Pharaoh had a dream that no one in Egypt could interpret. And the cupbearer, the man who had forgotten, remembered. There is a young Hebrew man in the prison. He interprets dreams. Joseph was brought before the most powerful ruler in the known world, unshaved and unpolished, carrying nothing but the same gift he had carried since he was a boy. Pharaoh told him the dream. Joseph told him what it meant. And in the space of a single conversation, everything changed. Not because Joseph had finally gotten lucky, but because every single thing that had happened to him, the pit, the chains, the false accusation, the prison, the forgotten promise, had placed him in the exact position where this moment was possible. The betrayal had moved him to Egypt. Egypt had placed him in Potiphar's household. The household had placed him in prison. The prison had placed him beside the cupbearer. The cupbearer had placed him before Pharaoh. The road to the palace ran directly through the pit. Joseph became second only to Pharaoh over all of Egypt. He oversaw the preparation for 7 years of famine. He saved a nation. And then, in one of the most arresting moments in the whole story, his brothers came to Egypt looking for food. They didn't recognize him. He recognized them immediately. He didn't call the guards. He didn't take revenge. He watched them bow before him, the same men who had stood over a pit, and he quietly left the room and wept where no one could hear him. Then he walked back out and continued the conversation. When he finally revealed himself, what he said broke something open. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" And when his brothers were too terrified to answer, when the weight of what they had done was pressing down on every one of them, he said this: "Do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here. It was not you who sent me here. God sent me ahead of you. This is not a man performing forgiveness for an audience. This is a man who has actually arrived somewhere, who looked at the whole arc of his life, the pit, the chains, the prison, the silence, and saw something in it that his brothers never could. He was not saying what they did was right. He was saying something more unsettling and more freeing than that. What you did was real, and it was part of something I could not have reached any other way. There is a Hebrew word, tzafun, meaning something hidden away, stored, reserved, as in a treasure set aside for a specific moment that cannot come early. Joseph had been hidden, not abandoned, hidden. His gift had been stored through every dark room he passed through, intact and waiting for the moment it was needed at the highest level. His brother's cruelty had not buried him, it had moved him into position. I want to be honest. Not every pit is preparation with a clean, visible arc. Not every betrayal maps onto Joseph's story. Some wounds are simply wounds, and the people who caused them carry no hidden role in anyone's redemption. But Joseph's life holds open a possibility that is worth sitting with. That the thing which tried to bury you may not have the final word. That the people who most wanted to be rid of you may have unknowingly moved you somewhere you needed to be. Your betrayers did not define you, and they did not determine your destination. What was taken from Joseph in that pit? The coat, the safety, his father, the future he had imagined. None of it came back the way it was. What came instead was something none of them could have imagined standing at the edge of that pit. The dreamer became the interpreter of dreams for the most powerful ruler on earth. The boy thrown away by his family became the man who saved his family. The wound that was meant to end him became the passage that positioned him. We carry our betrayals like evidence of what we are worth. Joseph carried his like a map. If you are in the pit right now, if the silence is loud, if the distance is long, if the people who were supposed to stay have gone, I am not going to tell you that you can see what this is for. Joseph couldn't see it either, not from the pit. What I will tell you is this: Joseph's story is not about a man who got lucky after a hard beginning. It is about a man whose deepest wound was also his deepest passage. A life that looked like it had been destroyed and was actually being built. Your betrayal is not the end of your story. It may be the beginning of the part that matters most.